Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on arguably the most important stream that we've done, or that we ever will do. The stream today is titled With Conviction, September 22nd, addressing Sabian Ryan, myself, in the 2007 Camrose cat killer tragedy. We are going to be talking about some serious, like this is a trigger warning uh, for this is a trigger warning. Everything about this is just going to be extremely dark and hard to talk about, hard to hear, and for anybody that doesn't want to put themselves through that, I encourage you not to continue watching. But and I'm sorry, I do need to state that I'm extremely nervous. I've been having a hard time, facing this for a long time. Um, there is an element that we're going to dive into later about me hiding from my past, and clearly the fact that I have such a hard time talking about it in a public state like this, kind of shows that I definitely have been hiding. But I'm going to read through how we're going to go through today. We did make a post about it yesterday, but I'll read through it and then we'll start. I do want to note that I don't have the comments streaming to, like, I can't see them as they're coming in right now. Um, just so that we can kind of get through this, without being distracted. It's not that we don't want to acknowledge any comments or anything like that are coming in. I would like to get rid of the subscribe thing over here that keeps on happening, because that is not cool. Yes, so here we go. We will be addressing the With Conviction supporters attacking, discrediting, bullying, negative commenters from comments. We will be allowing comments on the stream, but we won't be reading them live. Anyone who wants their questions or concerns answered on stream should send an email to withconviction@outlook.com. We will not respond to harassment or hate speech or death threats, and we reserve the right to discard requests. I will say we do have one email in there right now that we will be reading at the end of the stream. We will start off, we'll also be reading an excerpt on publication of names of young persons dealt with under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Then we'll be going through the ban statement, which will be read, the same one that was posted, I believe, 2 days ago on the ban page. It'll be read by the band members here, not myself included. Which I'm sure, by the way, is going to be hard for them as well. Please forgive them if they stumble. We're not all public speakers and stuff, so it's a little bit, and the content of this is very heavy. We'll be going to my personal statement, a direct apology to the public, addressing the multiple narratives, and addressing my current memories about the event. Then we will go into the final section addressing public questions and concerns. We will be reading and responding to select comments from our official ban statement posted on Facebook 09/20/2022 to the best of our ability, and reading through requests and concerns that were emailed into withconviction@outlook.com. Then if we have the strength to say anything else, we will do a summary, and then we will end the stream, and that will be that, okay? Before we go into the addressing of the supporters and things like that, I don't know. Let's just do this. Okay, so addressing the With Conviction supporters, we just want to say that to anybody that has known me for a long time or a short time and has had a current perception of my character and based their opinions on me due to that. First off, I do thank you for seeing me as a human being. However, I don't want to take away from the people on the internet and in the world that are upset and rightfully upset, and vocalizing that they are upset through our comments or personal messages or whatever. I think that everybody has the right to be devastatingly upset with me due to my actions, and both on the night, or the nights of the event, and post nights of the event with the way that I have reacted to these types of public outcries. Um, I also want to mention that I personally have been through this multiple times for a long time since I was 15, and some of our members have not. Um, there's only 4 of us here right now. One of us is at work. They will be joining. His name is Nathan. But yes, please. There have probably been some inappropriate reactions from the band members, certain band members, that have not had the opportunity to deal with the public backlash like we are currently receiving. And truth be told, it's been 5 years since this has happened on such a grand scale. And I think with some of our members, we haven't had the opportunity to kind of coach and walk them through how to deal with these kinds of things. And truth be told, on top of that, I myself haven't known how to properly do that either, as has been um, brought up by many of the commenters. I've dealt with it poorly in the past, and so we just want to make sure also that our fans, if you will, and our supporters are not going to be out there, and our band members are not out there shitting on people, saying things like, just, you know what I mean, just adding to the negativity, if you will. Fighting fire with fire is not going to help, and we all here respect the opinions and the thoughts of those who are being critical of myself and the band. We want to validate those thoughts and those concerns because they are valid. Um, Maybe I haven't been able to express the validity of them in the past because I've been uh, hiding and scared of things, right? Facing things for myself. But truth be told, they are completely valid, and I couldn't agree with the majority of them more. I couldn't agree with them more. So, yeah. Um, we already went over the comments. Again, please, if you do have questions and things that are, like semi well thought out or like legitimate or whatever, not just like a death threat or, screw you, go die or something, please do send an email to withconviction@outlook.com because, we will read it and we will try our best to at least, one, validate it, acknowledge it, recognize it, or two, um, respond to it, you know? So there's that. I guess I would like to go ahead and read the excerpt on publication of names of young persons dealt with under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Because I know part of the narrative out there, or part of what people are looking for, is sorry, I need to shut my phone off. It's a little bit distracting, getting a lot of messages and things. Some people want me to name names and things like that, and I've always had a very hard time even just telling the story in general because I know that I'm not supposed to name names, or I felt like I was not supposed to name names, whether it was a moral thing or not. But I did go to the the YGCA website here, and so I'm just going to read off this one little section. Publication, records, and information. This is the section within the document. Protection of privacy of young persons. The identity of offender not to be published. I think this is section 110, subsection 1, potentially. I'm not really good at legal documents and things like that, but I'm going to do my best. Subject to this section, no person shall publish the name of a young person or any other information related to a young person if it would identify the young person as a young person dealt with under this act. The act being the Youth Criminal Justice Act. There is more to this section here, but I think that kind of sums up in and of itself right off the top that I will not be naming names of ringleaders or others involved in the event. from this section on, I will, well, not from this section on, but here we are moving into the ban statement section of the live stream. And I believe AJ is going to start off, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to work our way around. If Nathan doesn't make it to the stream in time, one of them will finish the last section. But yeah, I'm going to pass the torch over to AJ. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabian, and thank you to everybody who's watching and giving us your time. We appreciate it. I'm just going to say now, as Sabian has already kind of mentioned, but if I stutter or choke on any words, I apologize ahead of time. In light of past events and the current circulation of them in the public eye, we as a band would like to take the time to address this issue properly and to make a statement to everyone who has been affected by the actions of our vocalist, Sabian Ryan. When Sabian was 15, he was involved in Camrose cat killer's crime in 2007. There is no denying that this crime is so dark, so disgusting, that it is unforgivable in nature. Today, as a band, we want to publicly recognize the pain he has caused, not only to Princess, but also to the family, to Camrose, to Alberta, and to... We recognize that the pain and the suffering of these actions are widespread, completely valid, and everlasting. We also recognize that while it does not justify nor redeem such actions, nothing ever can. Despite not being able to rectify the harm that caused in this particular and tragic event, With Conviction is committed to raising awareness and providing continuous support to underfunded organization in correlation and outside the terrible crimes we speak about today. Although such actions carry shame and guilt that no amount of apologizing or therapy will ever undo, Sabian has been open to and honest with us, our fans, and anyone who is willing to listen about his involvement in this crime. For those of you who have not had the ability to speak to Sabian or our band directly, we are sharing all of this information now to provide complete transparency and disclosure of our knowledge and feelings regarding these events. We want to clarify that while the outcome of this statement may vary, that the primary purpose of this statement is to acknowledge the harm Sabian caused and to respond to such in solidarity. Not only is Sabian our frontman, but he's also the very primary lyricist and message carrier of the band. We know it's cliche, but it is true. Sabian practices what he preaches about in our music: growth and change. We see firsthand the weight his actions have placed on the community, those around him, and as well as himself, and so does he. That was one reason why our music contains the messages of healing and change, because we all see the need for in this world as well as within ourselves. We all believe in the ability of people to grow, even in the darkest of places. That said, this statement is in no way our justification for such actions, nor is it an attempt to minimize those who are angry and hurting. To all those who are suffering because of this, we see you, we hear you. From the bottom of each of our hearts, we are sorry. While it has been 15 years since it occurred, we understand that even with time, such devastating effects are long-lasting. We have and will continue to accept the responsibility we hold as a group, and we will remain committed to making space for... Sorry, I'm just losing the train here. For everyone around us to heal. To all of you who heard about this in 2007, we are sorry. And to everyone who was made to feel unsafe because of such actions in their community, we are sorry. And lastly, to everyone who has been discovering the news of this tragic story for the first time, we are sorry. This applies to all of us, to all of you, including those discovering this in recent days, as well as those in the future who are yet to do so. This applies to you regardless of your support towards the band, our band, or not. We understand and respect all of your rights to support or discard us, but we hope that in this statement will allow you to make that choice for yourself in an informed manner. This official response to his actions in 2007 also contained our decision today with respects to his involvement in With Conviction. While many people might be expecting us as a group to part ways with Sabian as our vocalist, we have and will continue to support him as our friend, brother, and family. We know that this may be deeply unsettling to many, especially those hearing about this for the first time or through limited information online. We'd like everyone reading this message, hearing this message, I guess, in this case, to understand that this is an informed decision on our part as a band. And we ask that you take the time to read this statement and understand how and why it is that we have decided to do this. Thank you.
Many musical groups find out about devastating events that were hidden actions of the past, but with Sabian, this is not the case. The news of this crime is not recent for us, and is also not a reflection of a dark past hidden away in a closet full of other skeletons, nor do we believe that Sabian is a danger to us, or fans, or anyone else around him. Sabian has been very honest with all of us about his involvement in this crime and his mistakes of his youth. We have already seen how dedicated he has become to giving back to the music community and those in need. Our ongoing support towards him is motivated by our belief that people can and do change. Sabian is living proof of that. It might be hard for many people who are digesting the weight of this information to understand why, but those who have come to know Sabian as the person he is today and not for something he wishes every day of his life that he could take back, and unfortunately he cannot. Sabian has sought counseling for many years in his youth and has made personal amends with the victims of this crime. Even though he struggles to forgive himself, the family of Princess has found it in their hearts to forgive him. This solely because of who he is today and how he chose to try and repair some of the harm from his actions. We as a band recognize what the family and so many others in the community have, which is that such horrific actions of a tragic but isolated incident do not define him as a person. While no amount of pain, confusion, or bad crowd involvement justifies murder or being witness to the taking of an innocent life, we know that this is not the person he strives to be today. We want to be very clear that who Sabian is today does not justify the actions of his past, and that rather being accepting of such actions, we are making space for the person he is today to grow and spread the messages we all believe through our music. We want to work towards making the music community and our society a safer and more inclusive place for everyone. This is especially true for the younger generations who are struggling to find their way in this world. While we don't agree with the parallel versions of the story that have been shared recently, we completely respect and recognize the reactions to them. Sabian carries the weight on him. We've witnessed his growth and we witnessed his remorse. He has publicly apologized and made statements regarding these events over the years. He knows that this time around he missed the mark with his response, and to the public outcry, has come to understand a heavy fact that while this is not new to him or to others who have been affected for many years, and while he has made multiple statements and attempts to give back, some people are and will continue to hear about this for the first time, and their reactions and their outcry will likely mirror that of people who have discovered his involvement in crimes previously. This is the first time he's been in an online circulation of hate and anger fueled by the biggest regret, or this is not the first time. And this is the biggest regret he has in his life, and it will not be the last. Sabian has received more death threats in his life than any of us could probably know. We hope to anyone now that who is suffering, as well as anyone in the future hearing about this for the first time, that this statement may offer some validation for your pain, some healing over time, as well as that it will provide some insight into how and why we choose to handle this as a group in the way that we have. We do not think he should ever forget or become complacent, and we also hope that it may ease the burden of pain that Sabian and the victims carry every day as well. Thank you.
We'd like to clarify that this isn't a vindication of Sabian post, but we do want to recognize the efforts he's made in the community to help heal the pain that others and himself endured. In early 2016, Sabian started hosting charity-driven shows in Edmonton under the name Boy Egg, bands of YEG. The community suggested that if we wanted to play shows, that this is how to pursue doing so. We were all on board and wanted to support him in his efforts to work hard, give back, and help make a difference in our communities. Sabian and the rest of us spent the first 2 to 3 formative years of our band's life working to bring attention to various charitable organizations that he and the community felt best helped to prevent future harm that was similar to the nature of what he had inflicted. These efforts started with animal rescue agencies and have expanded since. While we recognize that many people may view his actions to raise funds for these charitable organizations as positive press for he and the band, we reject that this was our motivation. We acknowledge that this may have been an outcome of such actions, but object the claims that it was he or our primary intention. Sabian chose to start Boy Egg and became excited about doing so, not only to give back to the people around him or to help animals and people in need, but also to help his friends, family, brothers, community members, and everyone else he felt was deeply affected by his actions and the actions of others. Up until this point, he felt hopeless about being able to help in meaningful ways and even voiced to the band that he felt he should give up on music. It is due to him wanting to spare the rest of us any more pain that he made these suggestions. We work through these feelings the same way we are working through these ones today, together. Through the shows and raised funds from Boy Egg events, Sabian voiced that for the first time in his life, he was provided with a suggestion for how to start to heal some of the pain he has carried, as well as the pain of others. He continued to host shows and gave the proceeds to the Edmonton Humane Society, the SPCA, and Zoe's Animal Rescue, as well as a variety of youth-serving agencies in Alberta. He hosted events to raise funds for the Youth Restorative Action Project, YRAP, the Youth Emergency Shelter, YES, and the Neighborhood Center, as well as many others. While signing these contracts to raise these funds, Sabian would make an effort to learn from the organization members, and on some occasions was admitted for a tour to see how these agencies operated. He remains interested in understanding more about how people and animals in need are helped by these agencies in Alberta that have been designated to support them. He recognizes that he was in dire need of support as a youth, and that encouraging youth in similar situations to have the support could help to prevent them from making future harmful decisions. These shows were one way that Sabian has taken it upon himself to give back to the community, and they were a starting point and a gesture towards his unfailing remorse and dedication to the life and service of apology. An apology that he knows can never fully be filled to Princess, her family, as well as to himself, his family, and loved ones, us, or the world. The tragedy of Princess is something no one can reverse. Despite wishing every day's sentence would be different, there is nothing Sabian or we as a band could ever do that will bring Princess back to life. We recognize that him learning from these actions is all he has control of, and that our response to such is all that we have control of. While the reality of never being able to right his wrongs has been devastating and a lifelong journey for Sabian, he has chosen to host events raising funds and awareness for those he feels he has the ability to help. Sabian targeted animal serving agencies so he could support the lives of animals he could help to save, as well as troubled youth, primarily homeless youth and young people involved with the criminal justice system, so that he could help to support the agencies providing services to youth in need. This was all done in an effort to prevent further harm in the communities in which he was a part. Since the Boyeg events, we have held charity events close to our hearts, making an effort to do at least one a year. The most recent of the events was in February of 2022. We hosted a show as part of the Serenade Metal Festival, raising funds and awareness for cancer and MS research centers in Alberta. Aside from Boyeg, we've seen Sabian use his story to connect with others both on and off the stage who are going down a dark path. He's used his past openly to reach people that otherwise may not have been reachable. It is not a pretty tool, but it has been a positive and powerful one. We have seen firsthand how his response to his inexcusable actions have impacted the lives of those around him, ourselves included. While the actions have caused more suffering and pain than we could ever restore, we are trying to do what we can and are open to further suggestions. With that being said, we stand firm that this statement nor his actions to give back in any way redeem him of his involvement in this crime. We as a band are providing a much overdue apology as well as our rationale for our decision to continue with our brother and vocalist Sabian Ryan. We have a collective and deeply ingrained belief that unites us as friends, musicians, and partners that if a person is attempting to change, that space should be given for them to do so. Condemning someone who wants to change just leads to more harm. And we have learned that there is a way to take accountability for the harms of the past while also working towards a more positive future. We have and always will support Sabian on his journey to do so. We know that people are angry, and we do not understand how deep-seated that pain is as well. We cannot speak to his past outside of what he has shared with us, but we can speak to the facts of what's happened since we've been a part of his life, and we can help others to understand some of the reasons why we as a band have chosen to stick with him throughout. There's no black and white answer to grief. There's no blanket statement that can redeem such a dark past, but we respect your right to hate him for what he did and us for standing by him. While we know the statement is just words, we mean them sincerely. We hope that anyone reading the statement or listening to it will be able to receive it how it was intended by us, as a sincere apology and an attempt to set the record straight so that everyone moving forward can make an informed decision about their own feelings and reactions to this event, as well to our band and our vocalist, Sabian Ryan. We hope this statement is able to provide further clarity and that it may aid in future healing of anyone who is affected by the tragic story of Princess. At the very least, we hope that it's provided you with further information so that you can weigh your own choices moving forward on how you want to react to the pain of the past, present, and future regarding these events. We thank everyone who took the time to read this or listen to it, and hold no judgment towards your decision to support us as a band or to support our brother and frontman, Sabian Ryan. Sincerely, every single one of us at With Conviction.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for reading that. I appreciate it. I think at this point, unless anybody has anything that they would like to add, free of the restrictions of words on a page, but I know that it's very difficult to do. I will give you guys, 10 seconds if somebody speaks up, by all means. If not, don't worry about it. I will move on to my personal statement. Okay, here we go. So before I dive into this, let's see here. I want to acknowledge that I have I have been hiding from this, even though I think I've been convincing myself or trying to convince myself that I have not. Um, and I have not dealt with this properly in the past. There are many wondering why now, 15 years later, this kind of interaction is happening instead of, when it should have happened back in, like, let's say 2012 when I started wanting to be in a band in the city of Edmonton. Um, I've been a coward for a very long time, and I would just like to start that off before we dive into this statement that I wrote myself 2 nights ago. And I know it's just words on a sheet of paper, and so I have a hard time. I need it right now to be on paper, so I can't. I'm gonna do my best, but here we go. Okay. I think you're right. I think I've been trying to convince myself that I haven't been hiding from my past. In reality, the fact that I wanted to be an artist involved in any local scene in 2012, less than a handful of years after pleading guilty and being charged with animal abuse as a juvenile, I was ignorant to the fact that I had an immediate responsibility to make known my part in my crime to the public, take full ownership, show growth and understanding of the wrongs that I committed, and potentially even back down from trying to be in a band altogether. I was young, naive, ignorant, and clearly fucking stubborn, as any Ryan is, and will probably all attest to that. A big part of my more current issue with me, with being me, and everything that comes with that, something I'm really trying to focus, accept, and recognize is that, yes, in many subconscious or impulsive ways, I have still been hiding from being the Camrose cat killer after all these years. I've always been scared to open up about it in the workplace, unless it slaps me in the face like it did this last weekend, or in a private conversation with those who are opening up to me about their demons, their past, their struggles, or how my actions made them feel. And I have had many of those conversations, but they've usually been in private and in person. In the music scene, I was always hiding from it, though I convinced myself I was so brave for just putting myself out there. In reality, I was just ignorant, trying to trick myself and subsequently others that I was doing the right thing. But retrospectively, while it may have been well intended, a huge part of it was probably just me being mindlessly selfish, all the while convincing myself it was charitable, honorable, and just. It wasn't until recently, before the blow up this last weekend, but still within 2022, I realized that even though part of me felt like I had moved on from the past, there was still a lot left on the table to deal with, both internally and externally, within myself and from myself to the public. I recognize and want to admit that for a while, I felt like I did what I had to do to get out of the bed I made, to move on, and to be accepted as normal, in quotations, even recently. I also have at times felt that because I didn't physically put Princess in there myself and wait around until the deed was done, I was worthy of not being labeled an animal abuser. I rushed to the finish line. I wanted to move on and convince myself that I was past it. But I'm coming to the realization this time around that even though I and many others may think or have thought that way about it, that may not actually be the case, and it's definitely not the opinion of many of the people in my inbox and in the comments. I know that many out there with hearts of gold, okay, care so much for something so beautiful like the life of an innocent kitten. They would destroy anyone or anything that would seek to harm them, and I can't blame you for that, and I actually admire you and commend you for it. You don't need to be interested in allowing me to live the life that I've worked very hard to create for myself, no matter the cost paid or the time spent, the growth or the statements I make. You have that right, and I gave it to you the day I broke into someone else's house and was involved in a gruesome attack on an animal and acted like a coward in many ways for years to come. I recognize that I've hurt not only just Princess and her wonderful, wonderful family. My actions caused a tidal wave of hurt to a multitude of good people, good-hearted people in my city, and I spat in the face of everyone in the world who loves animals by stepping into a public role as an artist in a heavy music band. We weren't even any good when we started, and there are still so many more talented bands out there just on a local level. I'm also aware of how lame this looks. I'm currently here responding to a public outcry, reading a statement that I wrote. You know, many, myself included, would view that as a reactionary and disingenuous, or as reactionary and disingenuous. To that, I'm sorry for not having the guts to be proactive about it on my own sooner and unprovoked. I wish I didn't wait until you reminded me, but I've been scared. But it would have been a lot easier and healthy. Sorry, it would have been a lot healthier for everyone involved if I came out about it on my own. It is hard to find the words, let alone the courage, but I should have. I know today, here and now, after gaining insight from some of the comments I've read from my peers. Sorry. I know today, here and now, after gaining insight from some of the comments I've read and from my peers, that I've failed so many times in how I've reacted and responded to these types of questions and concerns from the community. I think a part of my issue stems from a deep-seated, impulsive need to hide from conflict, potentially due to the nature of my crime, potentially parts of my unique upbringing, who I am as a person, I couldn't really say. Only in the last 3 years have I been pushing myself to learn how to avoid instinctively going into a hide, deflect mode. Especially in cases like this, I am scared of public backlash. Really, any confrontation, but crowds of angry people scare the shit out of me. Subconsciously, probably because of how poorly I've dealt with these legitimate concerns and the trolls over the years, I end up trying to hide from it. And that has definitely held me back from a lot of personal growth. Now that I am 30, I feel emotionally and mentally like a full person. I know it might suck for some of you to hear, but I finally feel comfortable in my own skin. I don't hate myself or my body anymore. I don't suffer from nearly as many social anxieties, and my brain is generally much less foggy than it used to be. It's incredible what a couple of years can do for a person's ability to reflect. I haven't had a cigarette since February, which is a big deal for me, though I vape all the time, so it's a step, but not a full victory. I haven't used chemical drugs since around like 2014. I know I have a lot more growing to do as an adult, but I feel like I finally got a head on my shoulders and the mental fortitude to guide myself down a proper life path. But that's where we are, here, today. I've got a whole new perspective, more tools in my brain to deal with my own issues and the external issues I face along the path of life. I'm like a whole new me compared to even 5 years ago, the last time I got canceled, in a very similar way to what's happening now. And the today version of me found something really struck a chord while reading a comment from a kind man with a very intelligent line of thought. Right there in the comment, he was angry and passionate about it, but there was a line that just cut me open in a wonderful way and really helped me realize some things about my past and my current self. I'm going to quote him, but respect his privacy and not include his name in case he doesn't want to be involved in some sort of positive realization of mine. Quote, "There is absolutely no reason why he can't be a productive member of society, get a job, have friends, get a wife, have kids, etc. But being in the public eye is going to garner you, as me, this type of attention. If his story is turning people's lives around, that's cool, I suppose. Get into mental health work. I mean, he probably can't because of his past. But get out of a scene that has so many problems already." Boom. Mind shattering. And a line of thought that the current version of myself finds so much common ground in. Maybe it was the way he calmly delivered his point. Oftentimes, I completely reject the normal life thing. I never wanted it, and that's been a huge part of who I am. But I found myself agreeing with it regardless. And it got me thinking hard about myself and what got me to where I am today, both in a positive and a negative light. The negative, and the negative light is the one I've been avoiding to face head on. I could be a better partner to Amy, who's been with me since the cruel event, stayed with me through the sentencing, and has been nothing but supportive of what I need or what I have needed as a human being to grow and to move beyond my actions and my mistakes. I could have stuck with being a chef of my own kitchen and been happy with that. I could have just been a good graphic designer and stayed behind the scenes. I could have not added to the problem of there being so many ill-intended people in the music scene, even if I didn't think I was deserving of being labeled gross anymore. Maybe my bandmates would have had a better life without me in it. I love them and they love me, but maybe they'd be on paths now that would be totally different or completely the same, but without all my negative past and bullshit holding them back. It also got me thinking that maybe the way I react every time a new section of the public discovers or rediscovers that Sabian Ryan, the cat killer, is being touted around like some champion changed man on a pedestal with a list so grand of people who would come to his defense is and has been wrong. Maybe my Christian homeschooled upbringing had me hardwired to think that God had my back, so if I made peace in the small ways, I'd be forgiven and good to go. Just make my way through life like nothing happened. Maybe the way I told myself I've already been forgiven by those who really matter, so I don't need to do this again, is absolutely a horseshit point of view to have for a guy in a public industry. Though here I am today, a rational man, no longer a child or a youth or even a young adult, with all that self-proclaimed mental fortitude and emotional understanding, and I still want to live the life I've made for myself as an artist? I see where you're coming from, because from the vast perspective, that is pretty selfish. I'm now realizing, and a part of this is due to those of you who have been critical of me over the last week, that I'm stuck in some sort of paradoxical outcome where, though my stubborn ignorance throughout my formative 20s years, coupled with my hard work ethic and determination to overcome almost anything in my way, I have created a life where I know I'm capable of doing good things, but in the process of living that life, I've been inadvertently causing a form of emotional harm to a large group of individuals by reminding them that I, one of the grotesque Camrose cat killers, exists and am even celebrated by a community of people as an outstanding individual due to their perception of my current character. So here I am, alive and doing my best. Am I going to get it right this time? Probably not on the first try, but I will keep trying. I may not be a quick learner, but I do learn eventually. I'm an optimist at heart, so I want to make it work. But I know if I want to do this, I need to take action. And this is going to sound cheesy, but I need to take action with conviction, internal and external honesty, and a real fucking purpose. Not some poetic Disney picture perfect virtual signaling bullshit. Something impactful and real. Beyond the confined and typical route of, we're raising money for charity, so leave us be, fam. As an adult, I full on get how cringe that take is. So where do I go from here? I would like to continue to make art and share it with those who, one, know the artist it's coming from, and two, have made an informed decision on whether or not they want to support an individual or a band that has a member with a dark, dark past like mine. Whether or not they've changed as an individual and or the message of their music/mission is a positive thing to society. I know that's a mouthful. I want to do more work on myself. I think seeing a therapist about some of these questions I have about myself, like why do I hide from things so quickly, or what could have caused me to flip the switch back then to be a part of Princess's death. I haven't gone to therapy as an adult because I've felt like I was not a risk to myself or to those around me. But through some conversations with my peers, I came to that conclusion that I think I would benefit from it. I want to ignite a new passion for charity work in a similar way that I used to, but more hands-on experiences too, not just raising funds through shows and not just raising funds through shows, mixing that in with something more impactful. I want to continue to share my journey with those who are willing to hear it. Maybe in the future I can find the courage to do public speaking or something, but for now, all I know is music. I want to make my family, the victims, and my community proud. I hope to achieve this through my willingness to share, willingness to be open and honest, both with myself and the public, about my past, and my dedication to achieving the goals I set out for myself. Regardless of what trials and tribulations of being me puts in my path, whether or not it started out in a healthy way, or if it was the right choice to make at the time, I wish to see it through. I understand many of you don't care what I would like to do, and I do respect that. I have decided to cancel With Conviction's appearances at our next 2 private events in Edmonton. And I, as the founder and leader of With Conviction, am announcing a public event hiatus for the remainder of 2022 and into 2023 until I find the right avenue to properly be involved in concerts again. I will focus my efforts on my personal humility and sharing my story with others in a less on-the-stage way for a bit. Though I do plan and hope to come back in a humble way where I can incorporate community outreach and raise awareness for organizations doing good things for animals and youth alike. If I give up and I throw in the towel, I won't feel as though I can confidently encourage others going through their own dark times to keep pushing through their pain and their darkness if I wasn't ever able to conquer my own. And I hope you understand my line of thinking around that. I've been able to do some amazing things, and I've met some incredibly kind-hearted, intelligent, and welcoming people on my journey so far. Some mean ones too, but they had good reason, and I'm truly blessed to have the small amount of experiences in the metal scene that I have. I wouldn't be who I am today without each and every one of you, both for me and against me, impacting my life in a positive or a critical way. So thank you. I thank and commend the kind souls, my brothers and With Conviction, for standing by me through all of this. They deserve the best things in life. I thank the victim's family for their forgiveness and encouragement over the years, standing by me through thick and thin. I thank my parents for forgiving their son, grandparents for forgiving their grandson, my siblings for forgiving their brother, the eldest of 7 kids for leading them astray by setting a piss poor example for them. I thank my life partner, my rock and my foundation, Amy, for remaining faithful and loving me for 15 years of our lives on this planet. And I thank you, whether you came here to watch the train wreck or you came here to show your support. Thank you for being who you are to me in my life, either in the past or right now, on my side or against me. Thank you for showing me where I've gone wrong and for encouraging me to do better. I hope to talk again soon, and I plan on doing more opening up around this in the future. I appreciate you. End statement. Thank you for hearing me out. And I know it was a little bit wordy. I tend to over explain. I tend to deflect a lot. And I tend to rationalize both to myself and to those around me my actions because I've had a hard time just looking in the mirror, you know, and just accepting that I am, or at least have been, a monster. And there's no excuse. I there's no excuse. I was there. I saw it happen. I didn't leave as soon as I should have. And I am an animal abuser, or at least I have abused an animal in my lifetime. And that does not make me feel good. Now, I can sit here fucking holding back the tears. It doesn't matter. The point is, every single one of you have the right to be angry. I am not asking for your forgiveness. These are not tears of convincing. These are not emotions of, a PR stunt. I don't At one point in my life, maybe when I was very young, I wanted to be famous, yes. And I've said some very stupid, stupid things regarding that. And we will address those shortly. Just trying to collect myself a little bit here and have a moment of just being honest off of a sheet of paper that is in front of me. I am sorry. Truly. Deeply. Like, I have been the most fucked up person that you know of, potentially. And I've been sneaking around in the scene thinking that I've been brave. And you're right, that's not the right way to do this. And I've not done this the right way for so long. It's been 15 years since that happened. This should have happened a long time ago. I've been a coward for a long time. So thank you for listening to my statement. I know that there are a lot of different available stories, if you will, about what happened that night. Some on more credible sites than others, but they are out there. And it's difficult for me trying to think back and remember instead of just envisioning or coming up with or whatever. It's difficult for me to give a factual statement on what happened that night. My memory, and I know this is not going to make some people happy at all. This is not going to make people happy at all, but this is one of the reasons why I think I need to go see a professional and work through some of this stuff is, though I'm the one that caused harm that night, it was an extremely fucked up situation for my brain to try to deal with afterwards. I didn't know how to do it, and for such a long time, and I think I'm still figuring it out, to be honest. But I just hope that I'm going to try my hardest right now to speak on the things that I know happened that night. And again, for anybody watching, it's going to be there's a big trigger warning coming up. But I will not be able to fill in all the blanks because, I mean, it wasn't even until, like, I don't know what it is, but my brain has done this thing where it's been reported as 2 nights, but I can only remember it being one large event. and there's just bits and pieces mixed in with a lot of chaos. And throughout the years, being fully transparent with you, I have gone through stages of feeling completely as though none of it was my fault. Like I was the innocent bystander standing outside the entire time. And then I've gone through stages of thinking and envisioning and dreaming, in a sense, I'm not sure how you would put it, that I was the only one involved. Like I wrote everything on the walls, or like I was the one that did everything and put the cat in the microwave and held it closed and all these things. I've envisioned both sides, and I feel the guilt of it all. I feel as though I'm the face of this, and it's difficult because I also know I'm no intention of being that person. But I'm going to do my best, and we're going to try to walk through what happened. So if I'm not mistaken, December 27th, 2007, I remember sneaking out of my brother's window to meet up with. See, now I think I'm giving information that I'm not supposed to speak on, but identifying the people that were there. But I remember sneaking out my window to meet up with this gang of people that I'd just been introduced to. We called ourselves FS. And in all reality, it was literally just a group of white kids doing stupid fucking shit in our neighborhood. We lit things on fire. When I say we, I don't necessarily mean me, but we lit things on fire. We threw eggs at stuff. We smashed mailboxes, broke into cars. Those were the types of vandalistic crimes that we typically engaged in. We, they, whichever. I remember it being cold and we walked. I cannot remember if we met up at our usual spot at one of the members' houses on the other side of town, but I do remember that the family lived much closer to us than they did to the person that we normally met up with. Sorry, that's a horrible way of phrasing, but I remember walking there, and it was night, and I believe there were 5 people, potentially 6. I'm trying to think through the names of the people, but I remember jumping on the trampoline, and I recall one of the members walking into the shed to grab some form of tool to either break into the back door or the back window. I cannot remember exactly which one and how we got in. Upon entering the home, I recall a lot of vandalism, smashing of TVs, specifically I can recall, smashing of walls, which I can recall doing myself, and writing on walls. I can recall the main focus for me, anyways, it felt like, of being there was to steal things. I hadn't really stolen a lot of things before then, but it was shoplifting was something I had just discovered, and I don't know, I became some sort of a klepto, if you will. But I wanted to steal a bunch of things that I was not allowed to have in my own personal family home. I can recall taking a paintball gun, and I can recall taking some sort of video game console or something like such, and a bunch of other things, anything that I could fit in my backpack, probably jewelry. The first night, and again, I do want to go back and state that in my brain for a long time, this has just been one big event. And so over the last couple days of trying to rack through this, I've tried to separate what happened on what night, and it is difficult to do. Okay. I this is for some reason, it's just all one big event in my brain. I remember the cat being in Princess, being put in the freezer for a short period of time. And I think that I was the one to do it. And that's disgusting. That is animal abuse. And right there, that action alone makes me worthy of your outcry and your hatred and your disapproval. I feel with conviction that it was me that put Princess in the freezer for a period of time before letting her out. I can remember hearing scraping on the wall of the freezer. It was a deep freeze in the basement, and it did not sit well with me. It I let it out immediately. I opened up the freezer door. It jumped out. That is basically the gist of my memory for the first night. There are narratives and versions out there stating that Princess was put in the microwave on the first night as well as the second night, and I don't think that is the case. However, if it is, I can't speak to it, and I didn't witness it. Night number 2, I can't really remember coming back, but I do know that there were less people involved. There was 4 of us. The ringleader. Here's the thing. Upon racking my brain, I don't know why else we would have gone back a second night. I already had things that I had stolen. We had already smashed things and everything like that. The vandalism was complete. I'm pretty sure that we came back the second night with our ringleader to specifically, I mean, I can't think of any other explanation of why we would go back a second night, but to kill Princess. Was it our idea? No. But we were there. I do remember going to the basement. I was asked to look for and grab Princess, and I did. In the basement, I handed her to somebody, the ringleader. I just about fucked up. At which point, he walked up the stairs to the left into the kitchen and put her in the microwave. We all wrote disgusting things on the wall. The only one that I can remember is the one that's plastered all over the internet, which says, "You had a nice cat, look in the microwave." I remember 2 out of the 4 members, not including myself, immediately walking outside. When I say immediately, I mean within the first 1 to 2 minutes. We each expressed to the ringleader our concerns about what we were doing was too much and too far beyond what we were comfortable with. The rest of us were just trying to vandalize stuff and everything, and They left. I can recall walking to the basement and having some sort of existential crisis. I remember pacing back and forth. I remember smelling a heaviness even in the basement. I remember the ringleader telling me, we can't take her out because, or you can't take her out because you will get cancer. And I remember leaving. I was probably in there for a good 5 to 7 minutes out of the 10-minute ordeal that it would have taken. I was not in the kitchen for the entirety of that duration. And the time that I was in the kitchen for that duration, I was trying to say, this needs to stop. But I didn't have the guts to properly communicate or end what was going on. The leader was the last person to leave the house that night. And that's what I remember. And there are a lot of warped memories and warped visions. Again, like, I can take the entire blame of the whole night and imagine it as if it was just me there. And I can almost picture it as if to torture myself through it and put myself through it. And I have many, many times. But I know that that's not the case. And I know that there were others involved. And at the age of 30, looking back to where I was mentally and emotionally as a 15-year-old, I want to confidently say that I was the biggest coward out of everybody that was there. I was overly trusting to people that I just wanted to be accepted by because I thought they were cool. I put them on a pedestal. I thought they had my best interests in mind. Some of those people were very, very close to me, and some of them were not as close to me. But at the end of the day, I want to take responsibility for being an animal abuser at some point in my life. And I want to apologize once again to Princess, to her family, to my family, to the family of anybody that has been affected by this, because it is vast and far reaching. This pain is so, it's big. And I'm still now not courageous. I'm still now in many ways a coward, but I'm working on it. And this is a step, hopefully, in a direction of being able to overcome that part of me. And then one last time, I would like to apologize to anybody who wanted a much more detailed account. And to those who I've given an account to in the past that has been differing to the one that you just heard now. Because I've been doing a lot of deflecting and a lot of shifting of blame. I don't want that anymore. So, thank you for listening. I think now we're going to turn to the addressing public questions and concerns here, because a lot of people have a lot of valid things to bring up, and I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I read basically every comment, and it cuts me up but this time around, I wanted to learn instead of just feel bad for myself, and I want to address it in a much more healthy and positive way, and from myself, not from my supporters, not from my fans or my family or those who love me. And I appreciate those who do so much, and your messages, they keep me, they remind me that I am loved and I am a human, and I do appreciate that. But I think it's time that I do this and that you can hear my voice and see my face. I want to be honest, transparent. Honestly, a big thing for me, even I just want to be transparent. So I'm going to pull up some comments, and we're going to start off with an email that was sent in through the proper channel by a gentleman named Billy, and we're going to leave it at that. We're not going to show anybody's faces or full names or anything, but I'm going to read this out loud, and I will try to answer it as we go. Billy says, I want to preface this by stating that my intent in asking these questions is to be a neutral inquirer. Where I stand with the band / Sabian is irrelevant, so if I sound accusatory at any point, please be aware that it's due to poor wording, not an intentional jab. If any of these have been answered, feel free to skip. This isn't your first wave of backlash because of the incident, so why wait until round 3? In the past, people have been harassed and threatened if they brought it up. So why the sudden shift from we'll fight back to what seems to be we'll do PR control? That is his first question. He raised 3 questions, and I will start off with that. Why wait until round 3? And why have I responded so poorly in the past? I have not really a good answer other than that I have been a coward and I have been hiding, even though I've been touting and presenting as though I'm brave for putting my face out there and doing what I do, but not actually addressing these things. So why am I waiting until round 3? I think I'm just old enough now and mature enough now to understand that this needs to be done and needed to be done a long time ago, but I didn't have the strength or the support system or the know-how to do it properly. As far as the shift from we'll fight back to what seems to be we'll do PR control, I come from a very stubborn background, and I have said some very, very, very ignorant things when people have reached out to me in the past. And I'm going to address one of them in particular. I do need to pull it up so I can see it. Well, I can't actually. I guess I did not save the link here. But the notorious versus famous post that a lot of people see and a lot of people take issue with. And I think a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about. I believe I was 18 at the time, potentially still on probation. So I was not allowed out of my house beyond the confines of 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. or 6 p.m. It did change at one point in time. I remember being on a lot of mind-altering drugs, and the main of them being ecstasy, which anybody that has done that before knows it is a cocktail of methamphetamines, MDMA, heroin sometimes, and a lot of disgusting things. I can recall at that point in my life, I have been receiving for years already almost daily messages of an antagonizing nature. I can recall knowing that many of these people were just trying to get a reaction out of me, but sometimes they would say the right combination of things and win. And they would get an excellent screen cap of me saying something completely ignorant and completely foolish and completely lack of empathy and a lack of understanding towards what was going on and what had happened. I do not agree with the things that I said about notoriety versus fame, and I do not wish for fame as an adult because I recognize that this is what happens. As far as the PR control, I'm sorry if you still see this as a PR situation. I do want to circle around and say you don't have to forgive me. I'm not looking for your forgiveness or your acceptance. And I understand that many, 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 many people don't want to work with Sabian Ryan, and that has already been the case for many years, and I will continue to respect that. Well, the rest of the band says they know the full story. Is this knowledge based solely off the word of Sabian, or are there other factors that, for whatever reason, you're keeping from us? I guess this would be a question to the guys.
Can you read it one more time? Sorry.
Yes, please.
The rest of the band says they know the full story. Is this knowledge based solely off of the word of Sabian, or are there other factors that, for whatever reason, you're keeping from us? I think the main part of it would be, is this
How and why do we
sole
know?
word of Sabian? Yeah.
Well, I personally grew up in the same town, around and in the same town. I'm a couple years older than everybody. So me and my friends naturally heard about it, living in the same town. And we had the same thought as everybody else. And then I've always been a person that will find the most depressed looking person in the crowd and talk to them. Yeah, ever since I was a little kid. So, a mutual friend of ours said that he needed a ride back to Edmonton before his probation time, and I had my license. So I was like, if this kid's got fucking $40 for a pack of smokes and some gas, I'll fucking give him a ride, whatever. So that happened a couple times, and through that, we just talked. And one day I just asked him, I was like, man, what the fuck? Like, And then he explained it a lot more. It was a lot more recent then, so a lot more of the facts were not facts, but the story was still fresh. So ever since then, it's been a relationship that's growing, but I recognize that we all fuck up. I fucked up, AJ's fucked up, Keelan's fucked up, Nathan's fucked up. Everybody watching this is fucked up. My parents have fucked up. We're humans. And although it is a disgusting thing that happened, a very truly disgusting thing that happened, I I truly believe that rehabilitation and people changing is a real thing. They have to want it. Like some serial killer that killed fucking 72 people. Like, let's not be ignorant and kind of silly here. And but 15 years ago, and I don't know, man. It's just hard for me to not forgive people. I'm a very forgiving person. You could steal $100 from me, and I'd probably be mad at you for maybe half an hour, and that's no word of a lie. I don't necessarily hold on to grudges or anything like that. I'm a super empathetic person when it comes to the human condition and understand that we as humans are capable of super vile things without even fully comprehending it, especially being a kid before your brain has had a chance to do anything. You do some dumb shit. Some dumb shit. Again. So, I mean, going on a little bit of a tangent, but that's how I found out, is I lived in the same town and gave him rides home so he wouldn't miss his probation mark and became friends for that. And I love this guy. He's the brother I never had. And I think that's a big reason why I've stuck around him as long as I have, is because I truly feel as though he is a brother, a life partner in a completely heterosexual way. Even though, but yeah, that's how I found out about it.
If the other guys don't have anything to add, we'll move on to the next
Well,
question here.
I
Joe.
actually found out about it in school. I learned about it in social studies when I was like 15. So that's how I knew about it. And then I ended up meeting Sabian, and then I'm pretty sure Sabian told me himself that, yeah, he was that guy.
Actually,
Yeah.
I remember you. You were in a different band when we met. I do remember that.
Yeah. I never judged him for it, though, because I know that people fuck up. Like, as disgusting as it is, he's clearly made changes towards bettering himself so that would never happen again.
Thank you.
I can definitely say that I remember I'm not from the Camrose area. I'm not from Edmonton. I'm from Hinton. I'm 3 hours on the other side of Edmonton from Camrose by by standard uh way that we measure distance, I suppose. But I remember hearing about it when it was pretty much fresh news. I've always been a person who thinks too deeply about these kind of things when I think about it, and I remember it disturbed me a lot when I heard about this. I don't remember reading names, but I do remember hearing this and that and reading some of the news report as I could at that time, at that age, at that time 15 years ago, and a good portion of the details that are still persisting. I mean, I remember thinking about this a lot for days. It's something that I would pop into my head and I would ponder like how does that even happen? How could somebody even anybody like be involved in or do something like that? And I got angry too in my head. I said things and like honestly not to discredit the anger of feeling like you want somebody to feel the pain that they've caused, but I've said dumb things like I'm gonna build a giant microwave and put them in it and this and then that. And, so I remember a lot of the details from what I read then, very much being just the sort of the actions, but much more vague as the news can be, but general actions of like people breaking in, people causing mayhem, wrecking stuff. Uh, 15 years ago, I can't remember all the details that I read in that news report, but then what? A good 10 years after that fact or so, I met Sabian Ryan, not knowing who he was, trying out for a band, and maybe 1, 2 times that I came there, I think when they decided that they would like me in the band, of course Sabian never tried to hide this from me. He pulled me aside and he told me outright as much that he was comfortable sharing in the moment. And I took some time to process that. And I remember going back and asking more questions not too long after this fact because I needed details and to understand what kind of involvement Sabian was in. But, I got the good feeling he was a good guy. Like these people have known him for a long time. I gave him a chance, and through the years, I just come to know him as this person that's really good to everyone he meets. And I've seen him when he gets lost in the shame that he has caused and that he feels. And every time I've ever had to hear it recounted by him and sometimes by others who have heard it from him secondhand, other than, the kind of details that you expect to go missing or change slightly or bounce back and forth in a situation that happened 15 years ago, and to some that's not a long time, to some that's in their entire life, some people that's somewhere in between. But other than 4 or 5, I've never heard about it being 2 nights, but I can understand also in the situation where this can cause trauma to obviously the victims and to the perpetrators. Like things are going to get jumbled up over this time, and nobody here, I think, can truly say that they remember every detail as it happened all the time. And even, especially in the most stressful and traumatic times possibly that they've faced. Not to say that some things maybe compare to it, but like I don't see any concerning discrepancies to address that concern from over the time that I've heard it, from the few people that I've heard it from, and from Sabian more than once directly from his mouth, that suggests that he's making anything up in my mind. But I can understand entirely how it can come that way out. And, maybe I shouldn't respond to this. The dozens, I just saw a comment I glimpsed over and saw the dozens of versions of events that get me. Yeah, and we've all played telephone in high school. We've all seen how people spin it this way and that way. And that's not to say that there aren't truths to some of the stories, but, there's truth too based on a true event Hollywood movie, whereas a lot of things get twisted and the story gets changed over time. And that's how, I don't know, personally, I know how dozens of stories can get around, especially with something that can be as heinous as this has been, with the way that people have perceived it and have heard what they've heard about it from whoever they may have heard what from about it. But that's my piece. Maybe I went a little bit longer than I intended. That's just my response to that notion in general, I suppose. Thank you.
Nice. As well said. Suppose it's my turn now. I'll just try and keep it as brief as I can. I grew up outside of Camrose, so of course the story hit as soon as a few days after. But when I first heard it, just like Kyle, thought it was wild and crazy, and I couldn't even process it at the time. Even looking back, when I was first told about it, to where I heard it from Sabian himself, and to now, I'm like, I don't even think about the first time I heard it. I actually think about the first time that Sabian pulled me aside and talked to me about it. And sorry, when he did that, when I was just joining the band, he told me the story that you heard, and I was just, I don't know. It was a few months in, so he's obviously letting me kind of test the ground and that, and get the feel for the band, and then tell me before I make some serious moves to be invested in this group and in this band and in the sound and everything. Blah blah blah. And it shocked me. I didn't really process the name either right away. I was like, oh, just this guy that I met at a show, 2016. I went to his first show. And very polite, very kind, very passionate person. And not to take away from what has happened in the past and the horrific story that it is, but how I was raised, how I was grown up, many factors, people who are empathetic, people who are forgiving, people who look for change and keep going and keep getting better and keep doing good things. To me, that speaks beyond anything. And that's what I see in Sabian, Ryan. I see somebody who is understand what they did, felt the guilt, and, not to blow smoke up the guy's ass, but he literally is like this person who just has changed my whole world, my whole perspective on things, and how I want to be as a person, and how I want to progress and be a better person. So that might not be the answer people want to hear. I'm sorry. I can't tell you what you want to hear. I don't know what you want to hear. But at the end of the day, we're all here. We appreciate you taking the time to hear this story and hear our answers to things. And hopefully it can give you some more insight on what happened and where we were, like as a band, like when the story first popped off, and to where we are the third round, and as to why it's being brought up now. So thank you for listening, and I'll give the floor back to Sabian.
Thank you. The third question that Billy had brought up here, I know we spent a lot of time on that second question. We do have more that we'll go through. What is your end goal in doing this? Like I said at the beginning of the email, I'm going to stay neutral. So let's say, hypothetically, I believe that Sabian has grown and has changed? Why should I be expected to forgive and forget? For a lot of people, what happened crossed a huge line. This wasn't a whoops moment. This is something that can leave people feeling justifiably unsafe around him, regardless of any alleged change. While my mind and While in my mind, the threats of violence, mental and physical, are absolute dog shit, I personally can't fault anyone for wanting nothing to do with conviction. And I don't think any of you are really in a place to tell anyone that they shouldn't be angry, which for the most part you guys seem to acknowledge and agree with. So why the live stream? Why the statement? If a venue owner, a promoter, a band, or an audience want nothing to do with your band, how can you claim to understand their anger, yet wait till it starts costing you shows to actually address it publicly? And I appreciate the shit out of that. That is, again, a line of thought that I cannot disagree with. Billy, thank you for that question. What is our end goal in doing this? It is not to vindicate me or my actions, my current self or my past self. It is not. I'm not here in hopes that people will forgive and forget, or even just forgive. You know, I understand that many people will not, and you have the absolute right to not. And I want to validate that because I don't know why. I don't know why 100% why we're here today doing this. But I think that is the right thing to do. And I think it's something that I should have done a long time ago, but I didn't have the guts or the strength or the courage to do so. And so, in the effort of allowing myself to be, um, ridiculed, if you will, or allowing myself to be put under these lines of questioning from people, I think that's mostly why we're here today. We understand that there will be many people that still do not want to work with us, or many new people that do not want to work with us, based on me making them feel unsafe today. Not even just back then, but today. I recognize that, and I vow to you that I would never hurt any animal, human being, living thing ever again in my entire life, though I respect that doesn't matter today, here and now for you. We could probably spend more time on this question, but hopefully with our statements and with my personal statements, some of those things were answered for you as well. And I would like to move on to a couple additional comments here. Some of these comments were just some of the comments that they really stood out to me as, first off, like, intelligent and worthy of being answered, not just like a hateful thing. But here we go. It's cool that, again, I'm not going to say anybody's names here. I do want to respect everybody's privacy, so I'm not pulling comments up on the screen. We're just going to read them out and try to respond in a good way, or at least validate if we feel as though we cannot respond properly. It's cool that all of you guys have found it in your hearts to forgive a murderer of a small defenseless animal for pleasure, which I do. Well, I'm just going to keep reading. This is what serial killers do. You all do know that, right? However, as someone with a metal radio show and blog, I will never offer your band support, photographs, or coverage of any kind. The community doesn't owe you forgiveness or really any understanding. While some people are comfortable with those things, forgiveness, etc., I can say that I'm not. Some actions are simply unforgivable, and Sabian's actions, whether you like it or not, carry a significant stain, and one that's going to stain your band moving forward. If you're cool with that, then cool. Don't turn around and bitch about it when people get righteously pissed and remove support from y'all. Trotting out he donates to charities, in quotations, is incredibly tacky, and somehow doesn't change the whole microwaved a defenseless cat to death thing that's ripped straight out of a bad horror movie. I think this was more of a statement than a question, but I just, again, in this case, I want to validate you, um, and those of you who think this way, or feel this way, or agree with that line of thought. Some actions are simply unforgivable, and I recognize that this is not a mistake. You know, there's teenage level mistakes, and then there's like where 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 my actions led me way through the fucking roof. And I was there, and I was involved, and that is unforgivable for many, and I respect that. And I want to thank this person for their comment. Got another one here. Okay. Again, we're not going to say the person's name here. Their comment was, when you do dive into this, I and many others want a clearer picture of what exactly happened that night. I have read Sabian's account of it, and the event which has caused so much damage is glossed over. He says he was in the house. He says he handed the cat to the so-called leader. So what is the name of the leader? He should be getting the attention Sabian is getting if he is the main culprit. Who wrote the message on the wall? Describe the reasoning for that. If it was the leader who did it, did you guys hate the neighbor? In your account, it seems random, but this crime was so mean-spirited. Why does Sabian say there are 6 people when in every news report it says no more than 4? What were the other teens doing while Sabian and the leader were dealing with the cat? What discussions were going on during and after the crime? When did Sabian finally leave the house? When was he arrested? How did Sabian feel during those 10 minutes the microwave was on? Was everyone shocked, amused, or what? I don't mean to be morbid, but I want a clearer picture of what really happened, not just the event being glossed over. Thank you. A couple of these comments that I'm bringing up here really have forced me to look in the mirror and be much more real with myself about how I have presented things in the past, especially written. I am a creative writer, and I'm also a very poetic writer, and I tend to use words to dance around things, and especially when I'm deflecting blame from myself. And I have not properly, I have glossed over things a lot. Now, partly in due because I cannot fully say that I'm confident of certain facts. But, partly due to seeing alternate versions over the last 15 years and seeing them time and time again and having it literally warp my perception on what went down. And on top of that, I think there is some sort of response that my brain just does to help me hide from the things that cause me pain. I will answer some of these questions here. What is the name of the leader? I cannot answer that. To speak on it, and I've never publicly said this before, and other people have actually reached out to me expressing this as well, that this is something that he's bragged about doing in the past at a younger age, and he's bragged about other members of his family apparently doing this as well. And I don't know if that was just a deflection, but that's that. Who wrote the messages on the wall? We all wrote messages on the wall. There were many, from what I can recall, if I'm remembering correctly. The only one that I do remember is the one that's plastered all over the internet, which is "You had a nice cat, look in the microwave." I cannot recall who wrote that. I want to believe that it was the leader, as he was in the kitchen the longest, and he was the one with intent of doing that. But I can't say that any of the other messages written on the wall were not just as horrifying and disgusting. Why does Sabian say there were 6 people there when the reports say there were 4? 2 people were not really charged. Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, 2 people were charged with animal abuse. 2 people were charged with um, more like a vandalism type misdemeanors, if you will, and then 2 people pled not guilty, if I'm not mistaken. And so some news reports may not include that type of information. I did find a credible CBC article that does back up that statement. But they're if you're looking for hard facts from Encyclopedia Dramatica, you might not find them there. What were the other teens doing when Sabian and the leader were dealing with the cat? I hope I covered that when I went through my recollection of the events of the night. If you're unsatisfied, I will continue to work on that. I do plan on going to therapy to help work through why my brain wants to block out certain memories or has confused them or warped them. And I hope to be more transparent about this as I go on, because it is a huge part of my story, my testimony, and I need to be real with myself and others, both inward and outwardly, if I want to properly utilize it in the fashion that I would like to. One question: how did Sabian feel during those 10 minutes? Again, I remember freaking the fuck out internally. Walking to the basement, I couldn't be in the same room. The smell shook me to the core. I remember my heart was telling my brain, "What the fuck are you doing? Wake the fuck up. This is not right." And I remember walking back upstairs, trying to reason with our leader one last time before him telling me, "No, you'll get cancer, bro." I should have fought harder, but then I left. Was not in there for the full 10 minutes of the event. But I was not the first to leave either. And I shouldn't have been there at all, but I should have been at the very least the first to leave. Thank you for that comment. I appreciate it, and it has helped me look at this in a new light. We have another comment here from somebody that I respect. And again, I'm not going to say their name. And here we go. Their comment reads, this is in response to the band's post official statement. His comment reads, "This came across as thorough, honest, and transparent. Sabian is always going to have to speak to this event, probably for as long as he lives. But you know what? I'd rather see a guy out there doing good for his community than still fucking up over and over. And it could easily have gone that way. There are still questions. Many people have spoken to me, and I kind of unwittingly have been an earpiece for people curious about this, being in the scene myself, that I hope Sabian can address related directly to the crime. 1. Sabian claims there were close to 6 people involved on a Steemit post. I hope I just answered that through the last person's question. 2. Sabian claims that he was not inside while the crime took place. However, again, in his Steemit post, he handed the cat over to the group leader, who then killed it. I apologize to anybody. I can't recall a time saying that I wasn't there or wasn't inside while it happened. And for those of my supporters and, things like that have been saying those things or putting those things out there, or if I have ever said those things and put those things out there, I was wrong. And to those of you, maybe it's a mental gymnastics for why, you could find it within your heart to love me or something, but I was there. I was there, and I was more involved than I wish I was. This would have helped me earlier when I was trying to find this question. Sabian once made a post on YouTube claiming that notoriety had made him famous. This doesn't exactly line up with the remorse he expresses now. Thank you for bringing that specific thing up, because I completely denounce where my head was at that point in time. I completely do not agree with that statement, and I made it at a very young age. I understand that it is being pushed around as something that I said recently, but that is also very, like, beyond 10 years ago, beyond 12 years ago type situation. It's been a long time since I said that, and since I had that reactionary uh, point of view around it. I don't know if anybody has taken note, but for the last two times that this thing has come up, and I get a new slew of death messages and hate, blah blah blah, and all those things, and support as well. But I tried not to respond to it at all anymore, and especially in a negative way or in a defensive way, because this is what happens. I was young, high on drugs, in my basement, cutting my wrist, putting cigarettes out on my fucking body, and somebody said something. I did not have my armor on that day, and I said something very, very fucking dumb that I do not agree with. I'm not here to be famous. I'm not. I, I completely. That's gross. It's a gross statement, and I apologize. He finishes it off with, in summary, those are the sort of main posts people are mentioning to me that he should be able to address. I think clarifying these things would go a long way to validating Sabian as a remorseful, changed individual, and not someone who is covertly airing their dirty laundry via the public space. Thank you for your comment. I hope that I answered it properly, or to, not properly, but to a degree of honesty and transparency that you were looking for. And we'll do a couple more comments here. These next two was from somebody that I don't know. It's from the same person, and it really struck a chord with me, so I'm going to go ahead. The comment reads, "So I still have questions. Why is all of this only being addressed now? Why were people who were speaking out in the past about this..." Oh, see you later, Kyle. Why were people who were speaking out in the past about this DM'd with threats or asked to stop? Why not be forthcoming with all of us instead of posting all of this in reaction to recent outcries? I feel like this should have been discoverable before someone dragged out his skeletons if transparency was intended. Not all traumatic childhoods / teenagehoods lead to handing your neighbor's cat to a friend with bad intentions and not stopping the incident, and that still rubs me the wrong way. Many people have faced worse fates than Sabian's and still didn't choose crime. Others have and have to pay. Others have and have to pay the consequences, I see now, for it. Not like being welcomed into certain, like not being welcomed into certain communities. Change is possible, that much is true, and it's good to hear that he's been making an effort, but why wasn't this acknowledged sooner? Thank you for the comment, and I recognize again in this live stream, this video, that I have been a coward about being forthcoming. I've been a coward about being honest with both myself and the public, and I have not been brave enough to deal with this at the capacity that I needed to. And I'm hoping that this is a much better avenue of addressing these types of things. So thank you for that comment. We have one more we're going to read.
Wait, I have a quick thought on that comment.
Definitely.
Just from the perspective of somebody just in the band alongside of you, rather than just straight from your perspective. But I think, I mean, certainly we waited too long to address it in a proper manner. I do feel, and again, no excuses about anything, being forthcoming should have always been a much bigger priority on maybe all of our minds sometimes. But I do, I think, sorry, I'm just getting a little bit flustered up. I'm not the best public speaker. I do feel like it's easy not to notice the kind of progress that we make when we make it slowly. Not It's easy not to feel like any more people's eyes are going to be on us than they are in this moment right now, or this moment over here as they're happening. And having been in situations where we've kind of addressed and dealt with, so to speak, this situation before, maybe uh, in some ways it felt like it was much more public knowledge than I think we realized it really was. That's kind of just my thought on that. Again, that's not any excuses or taking away from uh, anything. That is just the plain truth about certain things that we've been discussing tonight. But that's all. Let's move on. Thank you.
Yeah, bro. And one other thing about us reaching out to people in the past, I think I do need to make it known that these, especially on, like, let's say Encyclopedia Dramatica, it notes that me and my brother, which I think is safe to say I'm allowed to speak about because he has personally published things about it as well. Um, my brother was there. My brother was involved. Um, we started a band called Any Last Regrets, and that is that I believe that was in the 2011 whatever era, and that is the band that they are referring to about when that's the band that I was in when I said these things like notoriety or notoriety versus fame, and had those shit cringe takes about it. I was in a completely different band, and it was my brother's band. Realistically, I played the drums in that band. Um, and that, so I do want to note that there should be layers of separation from band members reaching out and attacking. Now, I can also speak to recently, maybe one of our band members has not had to deal with this before, this type of scenario, this type of situation. While some of us, have put on our armor, if you will, we know that there's, we we need to allow room for these negative comments. We know that we need to allow a space for these people to voice their concerns and not have us rebuttal them. Uh, you know, some of our members have not dealt with that in the past, and recently, potentially, to some of you, have uh, responded in a poor manner. And I hope that can be forgiven, as this is a new scenario for them to deal with. And I also hope we can allow growth for this person who has done nothing grotesque like I have in the past. We have one last comment we're going to read tonight before the summarizing and closing of the show or the stream. Um, this is by the same person who posted the last comment. However, this is in response to somebody saying, they haven't been hiding, they haven't been, they have been forthcoming. And I thought that this was very insightful, and it definitely made its way into my official statement there. But I will say, I'm just going to read the comment as it reads. It says, "It kind of has been a secret. Anywhere outside of Alberta, had no idea who this band is comprised of. This all broke news literally days before my band was set to play a show with them, and I wouldn't have signed on to play with them had I known. not because I think he should suffer, but because it's my choice to support or not support whomever I choose based on my morals. In this case, I'm glad it's out now, and it's something that can be easily pulled up and associated with this band for future promoters or supporting acts to look up and decide for themselves too. That's all I wanted to see happen from this public knowledge, so that everyone has the knowledge and the power to choose for themselves. Not everyone will oppose Sabian's presence in the music scene. Not everyone will accept it either. But at least now, everyone can decide for themselves without any hidden skeletons. And to the wonderful, kind-hearted person who made that comment, thank you for making me see something that I'd never seen before. Because in my little world, in my little brain, this has happened many times, and I feel as though the entire world, like, I don't even go outside if I make eye contact with a stranger and they look like they're maybe having a bad day. I assume, like, I have a thought pop into my head where they know and they're shaming me or something. And I especially feel that when I'm at concerts, when I go to shows. I actually spent a long time not going to most concerts in the city unless I was hosting it or if my band was involved, because I didn't really feel safe. And even if I did feel safe, I felt judgment. And I couldn't agree more with the statement of this person wanted to know and be able to make an informed decision on whether or not they were going to work with Sabian Ryan and with conviction, based on knowledge and, informed consent, if you will. And that line of thinking applies to so many things that I agree with, and I could not agree with this person more. And I'm thankful for that comment. And I part of this live stream is in hopes to have that sort of public transparency and ownership coming straight from my mouth, not just some words on a sheet of paper or on Facebook or something. So thank you for that comment and for helping me grow and helping my perspective change and expand. Because, yeah, truthfully, like I stated earlier in my official statement, which I will eventually post a transcript of, I don't want to hide anymore. Even though I have been hiding and I've been convincing myself that I've been so brave and so honest and so open, I don't I don't want that. And I don't want to blindside anybody. I don't want to trick people into being my friend or trick people into uh, spending time around me so they can get to know me and then tell them. That's not fair to anybody. That's not. I also recognize that, like, I don't like the idea of wearing a dirty diaper everywhere I go that I've been wearing for the last 15 years, but that's the bed that I made for myself, unfortunately, as a young, stupid, dumb, naive teenager, and now I'm an adult and still dealing with that. But that is the bed that I made for myself, and I do recognize that I need to be much more forthcoming and transparent to everybody involved, and especially when it comes to music, the music scene, my friendships, those who I surround myself with. I know most of the people that I'm friends with, I've had these conversations with them, but it did shock me to see that some people that I've been friends with for over 10 years didn't know. And I go, how? I literally become shocked. People that lived in Camrose, even, that I was friends with, some of them didn't know. And it boggles my brain, because and again, in my little world, everybody knows. Like, I feel as though the eyes of the world are on me in such a negative way, in a shameful. I feel the shame of that, everywhere I go, all the fucking time. I'll have days where, obviously I allow myself to be happier, and I'll have days where I allow, obviously, but I still, it's always, it's like it's like waves, but it's always there. To summarize, I appreciate everybody, both for me and against me, for speaking up. And I hope that this helped some people get the maybe potentially just the closure that they need on the situation. And I love you, and I am sorry for hurting you back then and today, and over the years in between, with both my actions on the event and the way that I've dealt with it since. And I plan to be better. And I hope that there's still room for me to do that in the arts, and to be able to express myself, my story, my passions, my goals through music. But for now, as previously stated, we will be on a hiatus until further notice. And you may still see us in certain ways, but I'm going to be working on myself. I'm going to be working on my mission. I'm going to be working on my humility, my honesty, my transparency. I'm going to continue to work for charitable organizations, and also recognize that virtue signaling is not, it's not the right way to do things. And I recognize how that very well is virtue signaling, just saying, hey, you can leave us alone because we're doing good things. So I'm going to try to find a more impactful way to do the things that I need to do to make amends within my own heart, for me and for those who are involved, and for the family involved, and for everybody that has been touched in a negative way by this fucking horrible event. Yeah, I think that's that. I think that's the live. I think that's the live for today, guys. Thank you for joining us. There was one additional email that came in, but yeah, it's a joke. So we love you, we appreciate you, and if I can leave you with something through all this, please, if you're watching this and you've been in a dark spot yourself, or maybe you are in a dark spot right now, take my story and learn from my mistakes about being a coward, learn from my errors about not being able to own up to things. It only makes things harder on you. Continue to push through the darkness and through your pain, and you will make it through. I love you and I appreciate you. And that's the end of the live stream. Have a good night.